But anyhow, I know you have a great program for tonight, so I'll turn it over to Craig to say a few words and get this going.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining Miami for this great panel discussion. I'm here this evening. Well, my name is Craig Achar. I am the immediate past president of AIA Miami, and I'm sitting in today for our president, Madam Amanda Barton, who could not be here today. I'm going to introduce our moderator for today. That's Angel Saki II. He's a practicing architect in Miami for over 38 years, and he's the current president of Angel C. Saki Architects, Planners, and Interiors. That's a firm that was founded by his father, who is here today, Angel Saki I. And they're partners, and he has been with the firm. Well, Angel has started the firm in 1971. That's when I think Angel, the second here, was about 10 years old.
You're supposed to say when he was born.
So Angel has been involved with the AIA for quite some time. As a matter of fact, right after he graduated from the University of Miami School of Architecture back in 1985, thereabout. He has served on the AIA Miami board for several years, and he is currently our first vice president, which means he is the president next year. He has chaired several committees over his years, and he has worked numerous hours in other capacity at AIA Miami. Today, he is chairing this committee here called the Business of Architecture, and this is our first panel discussion in a series of panel discussions to come. Please help me welcome our moderator, Mr. Angel Saki.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that everybody knows how old I am, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules and sitting in traffic for a while finally getting here. When I got out of bed this morning, I asked myself, what in the world am I going to talk about here? Just every time anyone gets placed in a position like this, they start really wondering, and then your mind goes in so many different directions. And as soon as I walked in here, I realized I'm just going to talk about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to get the hell out of the way, and then I'm going to let the real star architects here give their presentation and share all their wonderful experiences with me. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Kaufman and Rawson. Louis, again, thank you for hosting us here. Magnificent venue. Please, a round of applause for them. Thank you. Then I also would like to thank our sponsors. John Bell, please stand so that everybody can see you guys. Very young and aggressive group of contractors, Oscar and Jazz. Don't let those names fool you. They're really, really good out in the field, okay? I would be remiss if I wouldn't thank our staff, Colleen, Marilyn, and Cheryl, obviously, who's not here for holiday reasons, but they are really the heart of this organization. We may stand here and we may take all the accolades and have all the names posted in different places, but these wonderful ladies really turn those wheels and make it happen. So please, a round of applause for them. So a little bit of housekeeping. Around the room, you'll see a bunch of screens with a statement here that I am to remind us all that state and federal laws prohibit the exchange of information among competitors regarding matters pertaining to price, refusals to deal, market division, trying relationships, or I should say time relationships, excuse me, and other topics which might infringe upon antitrust regulations. And that no such exchange or discussion will be tolerated during this meeting. These guidelines apply not only to the formal meeting sessions, but also to informal discussions during any breaks, meals, or social gatherings. So in essence, because the AIA has had litigation twice from the Department of Justice, fees is our four-letter word, and we just need to remember this. Doesn't mean we can't talk about our values and our worth, which is what we're here to do this evening. So having gotten that out of the way, I'd like to read a statement that will resonate and should resonate within all of us, and then I'll go and introduce our wonderful panel. Architects, since the beginning of time, have provided and continue to create one of four essential needs for human life to survive: shelter. Only nature can provide the remaining air, food, and water. So I'd like everyone to remember how important we really are in what we do for everyone around us. So I'll get started with our first guest, Mr. Richard J. Heisenbottom, FAIA. Richard is the founding principal and president of R.J. Heisenbottom Architects, PA, located in Coral Gables, Florida, with over 4 decades, wow, sorry Richard, of expertise in all aspects of architecture and interior design, with a specialty in historic preservation and theater arts projects. Mr. Heisenbottom's work is well known in the state of Florida for restoration of some of the area's oldest and most prestigious landmarks, including the Vizcaya Museum and Gardens, Gusman Center for the Performing Arts, the Colony Theater, Freedom Tower, City of Miami City Hall, Trinity Episcopal Cathedral, and Miami Edison Middle School, and I'm sure the list continues.
Just to name a few, thank you.
He has served as president of AIA Miami and Dade Heritage Trust, the area's largest historic preservation organization. He has also served as a member of the City of Miami's Historic Preservation Board and chairman of the City of Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board as well. You should have a lot more gray hair these days, Richard.
Lucky I have it.
Richard Heisenbottom was elevated to Fellow of the American Institute of Architects in 2005 and currently sits on the University of Miami School of Architecture Masters in Real Estate Development, Urbanism Advisory Board. He has served as past president of AIA Miami and Dade Heritage Trust, as well as a member of the City of Miami's Historical Preservation Board for 10 years and the Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board for 2 years. So everyone, please help me.
Overdoing it. Carry on.
Next, we have Ms. Natividad Nati Soto, FAIA, and lead APDD plus C. Nati is president of Ferguson Glasgow Schuster Soto, Inc., a well-established Coral Gables architecture and interior design firm with expertise in medical, civic, and recreational projects. The firm's work includes patient floor modernization for Jackson Health System, Heraldton School of the Sacred Heart, Foray Complication Center, University of Miami School of Architecture's George M. Perez Architecture Center, in collaboration with Leon Krieger, MBFR Logistics Division in East Kendall Fire Rescue Station, City of Miami Beach Must Park, City of Miami West End Park, and many others. I'm certain the list continues. Nati's love of architecture began growing when she was a young student at UM School of Architecture, continues to grow each year. This year, she served as fellow architects as AIA Florida's 2019 president, taking up the theme, Pursue Your Passion for Architecture. Fabulous. She enticed our professional association's 4,500 members, to energize their passion through design excellence, advocacy, community service, mentorship, and much more. Next year, she will chair the association's strategic council. That may have already happened.
I think you're reading an old one, but that's
Yeah, we'll just move on. She continues to serve on the board of Miami Center for Architecture, MCAD, and Design, and is an active member of AIA Miami's Women in Architecture Committee, very actively. And in recognition of her service to the profession, she was elected to the American Institute of Architects College of Fellows in 2015. Please, a warm welcome. I promise everything I'm saying here is true.
maybe David.
And last but not least, Mr. Yoshino, Don Yoshino, FAIA. Don is the principal of Yoshino Architecture EA, located in Boca Raton, Florida. And thank you for coming down for us, Don. Much appreciated. Since his graduation from California Polytechnic State University in 1965, there we go with numbers again. He has embarked on a career with an international focus. Beginning with a graduate program at Kyoto University in Japan, where he studied Japanese architectural history. Don's portfolio comprises of all facets of architecture, from industrial to residential, with some of his most notable projects including an award-winning 23-story condo in Fort Lauderdale, several high-end single-family homes in South Florida, as well as hotel designs in Spain and India. And the list continues on and on and on, I'm certain. Don began his engagement in the American Institute of Architects in 1971 as a member, and served in numerous leadership positions at the local, state, and national levels, and was elevated to the College of Fellows in 2007. Don received his fellowship, the highest level of recognition by the association, in the category of service to society, for his leadership within the association and for his service to his community. Most notably as trustee and former board of trustee president for the Morikami Museum and Japanese Gardens, where he continued his efforts to bridge the gap of understanding between Japan and America, and also assisted in the 7-year development of the award-winning Harriet and George Cornell Rogian Gardens. Recently, Don has traveled to Tokyo, Japan with students from FIU, study abroad program. I heard him, professor. And assisted in the 4th-year design project for the Morikami Museum. In 2017, Don was conferred the Order of the Rising Sun, Gold and Silver Rays Medal from the Foreign Ministry of Japan for his continuous work in bridging the cultures between Japan and the United States of America. So without further ado, please. You gotta give me a hug and kiss or something. I gotta tell you, this is a privilege and an honor to be here in front of not only these star architects, but this is really a treat for us to be able to listen and share some of their thoughts of their past experiences. So I'm gonna just get right into it. We prepared a series of questions to get this started. And I'm just going to ask the question, and then we're just going to go through all of you, because your answers may be different, and then we'll just flow. So when was the first time? I'm going to start with you. Yeah, I know. You're looking at me. I know.
Don't take all the good answers. Or the answers.
When was the first time, Richard, that you realized the cost of your AE services being negotiated for would not cover your expenses, let alone your bottom line? Was saying no to this commission even a thought? How did you come back from that, and what was your client's response?
Like 10 questions.
Yeah, really. Pick one.
Hey, I'm not going to make it easy. I just on the first one.
Let me set the table for this discussion a little bit. I think all of you should know that I've been in private practice by myself for 36 years, and by then you do learn more than a few things about how to physically and financially stay in business. I had the great experience before this of working as vice president of Spilla Scandella and Partners. Anybody else here from the Spilla Scandella days? There's Neil. And that business, what I learned there, is what has allowed me to stay in business for the last 36 years.
True.
It was. You remember a guy named Bill Blum? Yes. Bill Blum was brought into the firm. I guess I was there maybe 2 or 3 years, Neil, and Bill was brought into the firm because the firm was having serious financial problems. And the rest of us were not necessarily pulling our weight, nor did we know how to pull our weight. I am going to answer your question, don't worry.
No, you got time.
You're right.
I thought that's what you were going to do.
Bill was brought in as the chief financial officer, paid more than the president of the company, than the 2 co-presidents, Pete and Hill. to figure out how to teach the rest of us the business of architecture. Because we didn't know. We loved what we did. Neil's going to attest to everything I'm saying to you. We didn't think about the hours and rates and additional services and a change order for this or a change order for that. We just drew it, man. We liked it. We were doing good stuff. We were proud of where we worked. And we were spending money hand over fist, and we weren't collecting it hand over fist. And so Bill taught us to be disciplined. And he taught us how to actually calculate what our time was worth. And how to estimate what it was going to take to get a particular job done. And then he would bring you into meetings every Thursday where they would serve you lunch. I think we had probably fired the chef by that time. We had a chef on staff. Anybody got a chef on staff? Well, we lived a little differently, and maybe that's why.
And there's one problem for why you were not making money.
Douglas was his name.
Yes.
And he was formerly Meyer Lansky's chef.
That's right.
That's definitely why you weren't making any money.
Anyway, so I think we lost Douglas, and it was brown bag by that. By the time Bill was there, he wasn't going to let that happen. We should have charged for the chef. That was the difference. Anyway, Bill would, he taught us how to physically calculate what our hourly rate should be. You're paid this much. What is your overhead factor? What does it cost us to keep the lights on in this amazing building that we were in at the time? And then he would also go over our budgets. Okay, there's a budget for Florida Atlantic University Library, one of my projects with Spillis Candela and partners. Mr. Heisenwald, you're at the end of the design development phase. How long is it going to take you to finish that design development phase? And where do you stand on your budget? I have to admit, I couldn't even read the budget. I wasn't trained at the University of Miami or New York Institute of Technology to read budgets and do Excel spreadsheets. I hadn't even learned Symphony yet. Anybody remember that? It was one of the first, no, yeah, I went to the Symphony was one of the first accounting programs that kind of predated Microsoft Excel. In any event, we couldn't read our budgets. They were printouts on sheets that just bunches of numbers. Who the heck knew what the heck that was?
Okay. So, moving forward.
So
Your client, the first client that you can remember.
Circling back.
All right, come on.
So the point
Dr.
of
Richard Heisenberg.
So the point of this is, the point of this is that we had to learn all that stuff because our minds weren't really ready to think about it. What do you think about? You think about design, right? We all do. That's why we got into this business, one way or another. It was primarily because of design. And we had to get to a point where we could wear both hats, where we could be both businessmen and designers.
I'm so glad you said that.
Exactly at the same time. So I can't possibly remember back to the first time, the very first time that someone that I knew that I wasn't going to make my budget. I can tell you that I did not make my budget, and Bill Blum rubbed that on the Florida Atlantic University.
Okay.
And he rubbed that into me for years to come. But the story that I really want to get past you
Oh, you have more.
is that,
Stories.
is that the first time that I can remember is with a certain school superintendent on a very, very special job for the school board. Took up a nice city block, and anybody may remember at Miami Edison Middle School?
Yep.
Well, we were the guys that took on this very challenging project. It had 3 historic buildings and 3 new buildings and an addition and a partridge in a pear tree and a performing arts facility literally along with it, and a gym and blah, blah, blah. And I also might add that it won every award there is to win.
That's true.
But when I went in to negotiate that fee, as I was saying to you the other day,
with a person,
Our-
that's gonna be nameless. We don't need to go there.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere near that.
Okay, good.
When I went in to negotiate that fee, they offered me a certain fixed amount. And I knew because Bill had taught me how to do it. Bill had taught me how to crunch my numbers, how to estimate every hour that was going to go into this job. I probably didn't do it nearly as well as I could have, but I did it. And I did it to the extent that I really knew that when they said to me, "I'm sorry, that's the max. This is the maximum fee I'm authorized to give you, Mr. Heisenbottle. I can't give you any more." It was take it or leave it time. And it was a prestigious job.
Mhm. So you wanted it.
So I wanted it. And
That's what happens to all.
and Adele Graham, Bob's wife, wanted me to have it. And Ira Parks wanted me to have it. And Betsy Kaplan, the school board president, wanted me to have it. Anyway, the long and short of all of that story is that I said, go back to your superintendent and tell him Mr. Heisenbottle needs another X amount of money in order to finish the job. And it had lots of zeros on the end of it.
Okay.
He couldn't believe it because no one really does that, Craig, but I'm not taking the job. I need this much money to do this job correctly. Thank you very much. Go tell the superintendent. He did. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call coming down. We have continuing negotiations, and he came back, and he did not give me that number, but he gave me half of it. And half of it was still pretty darn good. And it was enough to know that I could actually finish the project and do it well.
Okay, well, that's a fantastic story. That's a very good example of the power of no, which is why we're here. Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much for that. That's fantastic. Nati, what
I don't know,
What was your experience?
I'm still stuck on they had a chef.
I'm talking to us about that.
Yeah, my firm,
We did, it was nice.
yeah.
We love the guy.
Yeah, my firm, I joined a very established OWG firm. And
What is that?
Okay,
Somebody's gonna tell us
no,
what
they
that
don't
means.
know, they don't know. And the biggest perk we had Charles Chips came in once a week, and he would bring a bucket of chips and pretzels. So besides that, but I was very fortunate to have joined this group of 3 really, really cool guys at that time. Everybody was guys and girls and whatever. Now then we were all guys, including me. And I went in as a young, I'm not gonna, if I say something, I'm gonna date myself. Okay, so I went in as the new office boy. The office boy in those days was you used to run errands and used to make prints in the office,
Real
blueprints in the
blueprints.
office, okay?
Ammonia.
Yeah, with ammonia,
Ammonia.
right? So I was very fortunate to join a group of 3 very varying people. One was very focused on business. One was extremely focused on design and the power of design. And the third was focused on marketing and developing relationships with clients and such. And all of them collaborated, not Schuster because he was in design, so he couldn't, that was one guy who couldn't say no matter what. But the other 2 taught me the value of negotiation, the importance of keeping your budget, how important it is to develop your client and understand what it is that they need to get a project done. And to me, that's really the basis of negotiation. What a project needs, what project are you going to be working on? What is the basic need of that project, and how are we going to accomplish that need, that goal that the client has within some semblance of the client's budget? And sometimes, like as Richard says, the semblance of the budget and the reality of their needs and their desires and goals on a project are widely different. So you have to present, you have to be prepared with data and facts and spreadsheets. You have to be ready to present what your fee is to develop what they need. What's in their contract, what they want to accomplish, do they want a state-of-the-art building, what's going to be involved. So that's all the power of negotiation in that you may go in with whatever the number is because you have taken into account every last thing of what this client wants to accomplish in their goals on the project. Once you come in with that and you show them, you list all that and what the implications are financially of those things, they're more aware of what they're asking for. A lot of times what happens is they say, no, we can't afford that, this is terrible. And you say, okay, this is what I suggest that can be done to come to a closer number on your budget. And then it's a creativity situation of what can I give you so that you're happy, and what can they accept so that they're happy, but without spending a huge amount of money that they were not expecting. And eventually you come to that happy medium where some services that they want are going to be provided. They're usually added on later on, but that's been my experience. So I have had those conversations where I've had these conversations with clients and they don't how to come to that happy medium. And it's very obvious that they're not in a collaborative state. And in those, we have had a handful of projects that we've said, I don't think we're going to get to a negotiation success here because, I don't feel comfortable that we can provide you with the service that you need and that you want for this project without, the fees that we need, the amount of personnel power that is necessary.
That's right.
To achieve that
Yeah.
for yourself. And we've had to walk away. We've had to walk away from ongoing contracts that we've signed because the young people in the office wanted to try a client that we both know. That and I didn't want to do it first, but the young people wanted to do it. So you have to go to the school of hard knocks on your own. And after 3 years of 1 year saying, well, we don't know anything, so we're learning. Second year is like, well, we've learned some, it's a little bit better. And after the third year of red, because you have to analyze your numbers as you're doing these projects. After the third year of red, I had to present my client and say, listen, I can't re-sign this contract because number one, it's 4 years old. Number two, the fees that you don't want to negotiate any of these numbers and how you pay your consultants for these projects. I can't do this work anymore. I already pay my taxes, so I can't, make that kind of contribution.
So the reaction was?
The reaction was a shock. I don't think anybody had ever turned down a project. I don't think anybody step away from that. We can't, it can't be physically done. And anybody that's doing it is not doing it right. And I hate to say after that, I think maybe they had one contractor left after that stayed with their contract, and everybody else was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
So you were the catalyst for
I don't
everyone
know.
to say,
I don't know. I didn't.
it's not fair, we're not
I
doing
think,
it.
or everybody got to the same point at the same time.
Well, your preparedness is what I'm taking away from this. You prepare your costs.
And I hope it's helped, everybody that works for this entity after that that's helped them learn something.
Well, sometimes saying no to a client also educates them by forcing them to realize that what we want isn't really what should be. It's not realistic,
Correct.
right? So maybe that's a great story. Don, what about you?
I don't have anything to say after all.
Do you have a shed? Did you have a shed? Have a shed?
Yeah, my wife always brings us cookies and drinks to the office forever.
He has a microwave in the oven.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, most of my clients are private sector clients, so it's a little bit different than a public sector client in many ways. So just to speak more to that level, or to that group of you who are doing more private sector work than public sector work, it's a little bit different, I think. And so when I first started out, I wanted to design everything. So whatever project came in, even if it was to to do a new front step to a house, I took it. However long it took, I did it. I didn't care about how much I made per hour, whatever it was, as long as I could have my wife feed me cookies, I was fine. So what happens with that is, as you go through that process, because as a young firm, as a young, trying to do more and more creative design work maybe takes a little more time than just doing some paper cutter, something you might get, see somewhere. So you want to be creative. You go and try to be what you were taught to be, a creative architect. So how do you get there? I mean, how do you make sure your contract states or is realistic enough where the client is going to understand what you're talking about? The main thing that I found out throughout all of my years, and even today, even more so, is the scope of work that you are going to do. Okay? So, if a client says, I want a 4-bedroom house, bathroom in every bedroom, a family room, a kitchen, 2-car garage. If that's the scope, that could mean a gazillion things, right? You can design, I don't know, unlimited number of projects with that. So with that kind of a scope, it's too general. You have to be more specific. The master bedroom has to be X. The other bedrooms have to be Y. And a guest room has to be Z. And whatever it is. So then, when you start to understand the scope of what you're trying to do, then you know what it's going to take for you to start to implement or design those things. So then, in doing that, so the more detailed you can be with that scope, the more the client understands what you're going to do, or you ask the client, is this what really you want? And if they say no, or if they're not really sure about it, then you have to add to it, or you delete, or you omit. I'm not going to do 10 schemes for you. I'm going to do 2 schemes for you. So they know right away they can't make a lot of changes, right? So you, in your mind, you have already started to establish the amount of time that you might be spending to execute this contract. The other part of this whole thing is additional services. Define what additional services are. Be very specific in what you're not going to be providing. So if they want, you can say in your scope that I'm going to provide 2 3D renderings. You say that in your scope, and then additional renderings that you might want, or walkthroughs that you might want, is going to be additional services. So you already start to define what your scope is. So once you can define your scope, and you have developed your fee based on that scope, now that's the hard part when you're starting out. You want to do everything, so it doesn't matter what your fee is, right? Well, you'll learn really quickly that if you have to spend 180 hours a week to perform this, to make this much money, you can start doing the math and saying, well, I made 25 cents an hour. Well, of course, that's not going to make it. You're not going to get any cookies, okay? So what happened
Can you buy the ingredients for that?
Yeah. So I think it's so important, I think, and even now, or even with bigger projects, is to define what your work is going to be. And you know your own creative abilities to do whatever it takes to do that. So you establish in your own mind, your fee, what you think it's going to be. So, initially I said, oh, I want to make $100 an hour. Well, that's ridiculous when I started. It was more like $1.25 an hour. But anyway, what it is now as I've gone through this process for over these years, I start to establish numbers that I think would be satisfactory for us, for me and my firm, to make enough money so I can have more than one batch of cookies a week. So that you do this and it's a learning process. So it's so difficult to establish fees. I know you have matrix and things that other people have done.
Fees, bad word.
That's it.
Bad word.
So what I think now, when people come into my office and they want me to do a project, obviously they come to see me mostly by referrals, but maybe the website or whatever it is they see, and they walk in, so they kind of know what I do. They come in and say, Don, how much is it going to cost me to do this job? What's your fee? My answer to them is too much. So it's too much, so don't waste my time. You go find someone that's cheaper, right? So I cut them off immediately from the first start. If their first question to me is, how much? I say too much. And that really shuts them off really quickly. So you don't even have to go into how much I was going to charge for it, because it was, it's too much. It's already too much.
Yep.
So I think that's
That's a great approach.
Yeah.
Great approach, Don, great approach. And can you remember a time when you actually started negotiating and you finally realized, no, we're not going to get there, and you actually had to say, listen, I don't think we're going to be able to
Well,
continue.
I really, if you establish a fee, you kind of know what your fee range is, what it's going to be. And I always have put a number on what I pay my staff, and you put a percentage over it. So every year, and I go by a year basis, I expect my fees to be for every staff member between $200,000 to $500,000 per staff. That's what I expect to make per staff. So if you have 4 staff, that's going to be $2 million or whatever it is. So I've already know what that is, and I've already set that number. That's what I want to take home. So what it takes, some jobs you're not going to, you're not going to make anything. You're going to lose money. But ultimately, there are other jobs which kind of balances that out, so you can use, so at the end of the year, then you can go back and say, look, this is what this is our fee, this is what we got, so we paid our consultant, etc. This is what, and we didn't meet the $250,000 per person that I wanted to make, right? So then you have to reevaluate that number, and then start to decide, what do we have to do to make that work better, right?
So what it sounds like is that you first evaluate your self-worth and the value that you're bringing to your clients. And because of that, that's your start point.
Yep.
And you work backwards from that, which is brilliant. And what I'm hearing, what I think we're all hearing here, is that the preparation before you even get to start a project up front is key to whether we're going to be financially stable or not, because A, that work scope has value.
Yep.
And if a client starts to chip away from that, if you're not taking away from your services, then you're losing. So you've got to be able to balance those two together and be very detailed as early as possible. I think that
And
those
you
are great
really
stories.
need to, and it sounds simple, but it's not very simple. So
Well, that's why we're here. It's not simple.
But the thing, especially when you're starting out, and I think I keep going back to that, because when I first started out, I didn't care what I made, right? I just wanted to design something. I wanted to start to put my name on the book somewhere, that someone would recognize that I did something. Then you start building up your reputation, right? And I don't advertise. Everything that I get is through referrals or through the website. and true, and I must say, friends, right? So my other comment is, if you're doing work for a friend
Oh.
or a relative, don't charge them.
Better off.
Don't charge them, because what's gonna happen is, somebody's gonna ask them, if you gave them a fee of like $10,000 to do something, somebody else says, oh, I like what you did. How much did you pay for that? What was the architect fee for that? And they said 10,000, and so they're coming in to you, and when you tell them it's gonna be 100,000, they're going, why are you charging me so much, right?
So it
So,
doesn't matter that it's my cousin.
it's right. So, I'm telling you, whatever you're doing, anything for a friend or relatives, don't charge them. Do it if you want to, right? Do it. I've always said this too. Charge them, say, okay, I'm not gonna charge you anything, but my consultants, you need to pay them.
Right.
Right? So you pay the consultants whatever their fee is, but my time and to you and my drawings are on the pro bono. That's it.
That's a great, very early start advice on this. without doubt. So let's move on to a second question, and I'm not going to let you start, Richard. I'm going to let anyone who wants to take this one start. How do you communicate to your client when liability becomes a concern in order to protect your firm's legal exposure? Any one of you guys who wants to take that one on? I'm only kidding, Richard, you can start.
Yeah, Richard, I don't like that. Don't we have any of the good ones?
And these were questions prepared by the committee, so don't chop my head off. I'm just a messenger.
Let's take a few steps back for a second,
Okay.
and maybe make this more interesting.
Should I take a couple of steps back?
Yeah, you could do that. How many of you out there have worked for any reasonable period of time, not in a large firm, internships? Okay, and the rest of you are either now running or are in smaller firms. There's two things that came out of what Don said that I would like to, and Natty said too. First of all, they value themselves. They are proud of the work that they do, and therefore they feel very comfortable charging for it and not literally giving it away.
Unless it's family or friends.
Right.
And that was Don's position. I had to get back to when.
I didn't charge
You would
my
say no.
son.
There's a long story about family, and then deciding that once you've done it, they don't want to do it that way. They want to do it this way. Oh yeah, we didn't follow your sketch.
Sometimes it's better
So
just,
that beach house for my sister, forget it.
sometimes it's better just to say, no, thanks, I think you need, I'll help you find another.
Right.
Let me give you the guy. But the important thing is here, if you're going to put yourself someday in the position to say no, and it's a nice position to be in because it tells me that you value yourself, and that this may not be the right client for you. And we're going to get to liability too.
I was gonna say, Richard,
One of the
are you a politician?
He's segueing there, but it's a good segue, it's a good segue. The reason why you say no sometimes.
I had the great opportunity to work as a project manager with IMPAM Partners on what some of you may remember as the SunTrust Tower building. And so that put me in a really close position with some of the partners in the firm over the years, and it was a great thing. And one of the stories that was told at the time was that IM himself, one of the most prestigious architects, at least in his day, would often say, don't choose your projects, choose your clients. Because a bad client is never going to let you create a good project.
Sure.
And so So we all go around like Don in his early days, and I was no different than he was. I'm going to draw anything I can. I'm gee whiz. I want to design. I want to do what I was trained to do. But the lesson to be learned here is choose your clients, not your projects. Stay away from bad clients. Stay away from clients that are problematic. Stay away from clients that are very litigious. Stay away from clients who are known not to necessarily pay their bills. You'll see them, you'll know them, you'll find them as you interview them or they interview you. You're interviewing them at the same time. You should be interviewing them at the same time.
Right, good point.
And to see whether or not they fit our status, is that our kind of
Our culture.
our kind of client, and then is it a good project? And we had a project just recently where we decided that, and I'll get back to your question, I promise. This was not the right client. The project was perfect for us. It was about 10 historic buildings, a Sunday village. It takes up 3/4 of a city block in Delray. We got a restaurant, we got hotels, we got banquet facilities, blah, blah, blah. Very historic, really cool idea, great idea, concept, wrong client. Wrong client. And so the answer was no. And so that's not going to be in the portfolio or on the website anytime,
Right.
anytime soon.
Amazing.
But it was the right decision to make. The good news is I was confident enough in myself that, we'll find something else. And we did.
That's
Right.
important.
It comes around. And
So
were you able to track that client to see who they actually commissioned and how that's turned out?
I have
Yes,
I
sir.
have at least 5 more minutes on that client.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Please understand, that was, when we shut the door was shut.
That's it. Lock it out.
I have
Why waste time?
I have a line in front of the door anyway, it's fine.
Fantastic. That's great.
So I'm gonna take Don's answer, because we saw this, because we have the same answer as far as liability is concerned.
Okay.
Years ago, I wanted to do condo buildings too, just like the cool things that some of my friends were doing. And so I asked my sister who's an attorney, I said, listen, I heard that this is like a difficult situation, and she's like, well, do you really want to do it? Because for sure you're gonna get sued, so it's up to you. And it's it's a pretty well-known fact in that if you have professional liability insurance, you put down that you did a condo building, be prepared to pay more. So she was right on, and I decided, the way we work and all this stuff, it's really not for us. And you said the same thing.
And Richard would say exactly the same thing.
Yeah, right. And so what happened is I did some smaller condo projects. And the one that you mentioned, the 23-star, we got an award for it and all that, but that didn't mean anything, right? You recognize for your design, but the homeowners, they got a leak.
Yeah, the air conditioning, how hot is that?
And so, it's your fault. I wasn't the builder, I didn't do it, I spec'd everything the way I was supposed to do.
Yep.
Didn't matter, right? So what the simple answer is, I always say to projects that I don't want to do, like a condo, I said, my insurance carrier does not cover condos. So as soon as I say, my insurance doesn't cover, they say, no, okay, and they leave. So that's the key to this whole thing, is we all have to have liability, I hope that everybody does, because there's so many litigious people out there. But, make sure, and in my, I specifically do not put condos in it. Now, the question always comes to me, you're not gonna do a condo, I say I won't do a condo project if it's for an association. But if an individual in that condo wants me to redo their space, I will do that. But not for the association, not a building for the association.
And that's for a relative.
And not for a relative. But anyway, So it's just very simple and things like that. Simple things like insurance carriers and things like that, they will immediately back off because they know they're not going to sue you for your, well, they would, but they want your insurance.
So let me give you an idea of how some of the larger firms actually get around the issue that we're all talking about. Richard Meyer did the surf club, and I was the preservation architect on the surf club project. Now, my area of the building had nothing to do with the condo, so it didn't really bother me at all. But there's Richard Meyer designing this condo, and at the end of design development, no, really at the end of construction documents, he turned those over to another architect who's going to go nameless because he's a member of the chapter, I'm sure. Cool. And that other architect signed and sealed the drawings for the both of us. So for both.
Wow.
He assumed, he took over at the end of design development and was the quote architect of record.
Okay.
So the design liability falls to the architect of record, not to the folks that did, so in this case, in that particular case, both Meyer and myself were kind of free of that legal liability. And I would suspect that that's the way a lot of the larger design firms, and Bob Stern's office was recently doing a number of condos. They did some really great traditional building type condo projects from here to New York. Don't be surprised if they're not doing it the same way,
Right.
where someone else is the architect of record.
And there's smaller architects that are doing that as well. That if you are an architect and your claim to fame is design work and that's your main focus, that could be a business model for you as well to basically develop that and then have an architect that you typically work with, that you have a good relationship with, that you can say, okay, I'm going to take it to this point, you take it from here. So that's the business model.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've also done, especially overseas projects, international projects, is I've done, because I consider myself a designer, so
And he is.
I try to do that. That's the fun part of every job, right? Is the design. Design through design development, like for this project in India. The client wanted to get an American architect because he felt he could sell his hotel better by having that so-called name. So I did everything through design development plus a little bit more, maybe some of the major details and things like that. But the drawings were done by a local architect in India. So they took all the responsibility, all of that, and besides, they know more how things are being built there than I would. And I would have to research that or have to set up an office there or do something which I didn't want to do. And so we found an architect in India that would do the actual construction drawings. Now, in my contract with the owner, that I would come and field observe the drawing as it was under construction. So it was really, really nice, actually. And I was also able to select all the materials. So most of the materials that went in the hotel he wanted to use marble from Spain and Italy. He wanted to do light fixtures from Italy. So I got to go and select the slabs that was used in all of the interiors and exterior on that in Italy. And so that's really slam dunk kind of stuff if you can get it. That you don't have to be liable for anything doing the design, but I get all the credit, right? So it was kind
It's a great model. That's a great model.
But
I'll be listening to that one.
But one thing about international clients is they often don't pay the last bill.
Retainers.
Get it all up front.
So, make sure if you're doing international work, you bump up your fees enough to cover the last payment. Knowing that you're not gonna get it anyway, so that's just CYA.
Excellent, that's excellent, excellent, thank you for that.
And that applies not just to international.
It could happen here, but it has happened,
It
has happened.
Yeah, I think we have to realize, not to be afraid to ask for a retainer.
No, yeah, get a retainer,
And,
doesn't matter,
and I
every
can tell you
job.
right now, most of my subcontractors,
Yeah.
my engineering subcontractors are all now asking for a retainer.
Yeah.
Well, if Van Richardson get a retainer, I can get a retainer, no, these things.
And the retainer applies to the last bill.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't come back in the first month.
No.
The retainer is applied to your final invoice.
Final invoice.
And,
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it doesn't, that's not
Sometimes
done
it's
at the end of the
No.
first month, that's
Very
cute,
important.
but
And make sure that is in your contract.
oh, it has to be.
Make sure you identify that retainer will be credited as your final, at the final payment. If you don't have that, they say, well, I already paid you X number of dollars, so I don't need to pay you anymore again, right? So if you have it in your contract, you're good.
So we've got time for probably one more question, and then I think we'll open it up for some Q&A. I wanted to ask, because you guys have actually, I've got 2 questions left that I thought were excellent, and you've really been building up to answers to one of them. So I want to just share that I personally was in a seminar back in the middle 80s. I had dark hair by then. I still at that point. And I remember meeting a very prominent architect, also a fellow by the name of Frank Stasiowski. I'm certain you guys have all heard of him. And he stated in one of his...
Much older.
Much older. He stated that most architects, when asked during their negotiations by their clients, quote, "Is that the best you could do for me?" Unquote. Historically, we as architects lower immediately our fees severely just by being asked that one simple question. And I'd like to hear your take on what your experience has been, if you've actually heard that before. And I'm certain I know what the answers are after having heard you now for the last hour almost. But I'd like to pose it out there. Just jump in.
That was Frank Stasiowski.
That's right. Yeah.
I'd like to start with that. I haven't heard it in those words,
Okay.
but that if you do your homework, and I've told you guys this already, you have to do your homework when you do that. Whatever you do, don't say that in a negotiation. I learned years ago we were going to do a state of Florida regional center in the Keys. And actually, I learned it before that project because we had done several other smaller projects for the state. And you would go, it was the days when you would fly to Tallahassee and meet the Department of Management Services guy in his little office and write. And that's where I learned you have to do a spreadsheet. I had never heard of a spreadsheet that Lotus worked.
Never
with.
oh my God.
Lotus
Oh,
1, 2, 3, and you had a little template and stuff. It's like,
Oh, gosh,
oh, okay, I
Lotus
learned that.
Symphony.
Yeah, so is that what it was called? Whatever. Anyway, so I go up there and so I had to do this spreadsheet. And sure enough, I went out there, I did the spreadsheet, and I even had to calculate the overhead for the office, which is, you guys should do that at least once in your careers, where you look at all your numbers of all the, everything you pay, the water, the Charles chips, the everything.
Cookies.
The cookie budget,
That's the big one.
the big one is the rent. Right, that's a big one. Okay, so if I did all that stuff and I went up there, I was all prepared for, I don't remember his name. You remember his name?
No,
I don't remember his name
either, but I know exactly who you're
I don't
talking
think he'd
about.
ever seen a Cuban girl from Miami before. So I get in there with all my spreadsheets, I show him the spreadsheets, I went with Stan Glasgow because he was the principal. And after all that, and I had all this presentation laid, all that, and the guy has one of those tests that pulls out, and on there was a little spreadsheet with percentages that they paid for a project.
That's right.
I swear to God, after all that homework, And I'm like, I see the guy pulling this out. I was like, oh my God, why would you make? Unfortunately, I knew what his numbers were from other sources and stuff. So I was like a little higher than that. And so he checks his numbers with his little spreadsheet. And he's like, and I at the end, it's like, okay, we come to an agreement. So I couldn't take it anymore. I said, why do you make me do all this stuff, all this work? And then all you do is you go to that spread. Why can't I just give you a thing? So, oh, because I have to have stuff in the file to justify it. Because it's a public project, you have to have justification. So,
Interesting, okay.
preparation is
It's
key
key.
to all these things. So if you go prepared and you go present what your scope of work is that you thought about and you put in paper and you said it's not a 4-bedroom house and whatever, it's 4-bedroom with, 5 billion square feet and whatever. If you go prepared with all that, you can come back and say, these are the things I'm gonna provide for you. So if if there's, I gotta get the numbers down, it's like, okay, do you need photography for this thing? You're asking for photography, that's gonna cost you whatever, $10,000, you wanna get rid of that. You start asking them what part of the scope they want to trim. Usually they don't want to trim anything, so they're like fighting back on the situation. You're like, this is, these are the numbers, these are based on our bookkeeping and our times data that we keep, that this is what it takes to do this project. And usually it works out very well if you're well prepared.
And in black
And
and
if
white.
not,
so
you just walk
clear.
away, you say, I'm sorry, I don't think we're gonna be a good fit.
Right.
And don't be afraid to do that.
I know you're ready to jump in, I can see
No,
it.
man, it's like.
I'm good, go ahead, we got 5 minutes.
I'm good just to kind of shift a little bit. For the smaller firms that are out there, I guess I would make a recommendation to all of you that in spite of the fact that you're a smaller firm, you should run your firm like you're a larger firm.
Excellent.
Act like a larger firm. Be as confident as the larger firm. What are your goals and objectives? It's one of the great things about our profession is that you can be a sole practitioner, all by yourself, literally working out of your house,
Especially now.
and still be as satisfied as someone who is doing $100 million projects. Condos.
Well, they'll have an attorney's
But run
budget
your
for that.
firm with confidence, act like you're a big firm, put your hours and rates together like you're a big firm, because you're worth it. And decide very early on what your goals and objectives are for your firm as a business. I used to have a guy, Neil, used to call me up all the time. He was an old friend of mine. And he would call me up. He was a retail architect. Rich, I signed 1.5 million square feet this year, or this week. In his case, it was this week. He would call every couple of months to tell me how many millions of square feet of retail space he had done. Didn't make a dime of a difference to me. He was impressed. That was his goal and objective, was to sign millions of square feet of retail space. It wasn't my goal and objective. My goal and objective was to put a design award on the wall. If I had more design awards on the wall, then I won the game. So decide for yourself. Is it strictly money? I would suggest that it shouldn't be strictly money. Is it strictly design? In spite of the fact that I would be the first guy to tell you to run your business like a business and make money. Architects should not be poor, they should be wealthy.
That's going to be another one of our seminars. Yeah, definitely.
But do it with confidence in yourself and act like you're a big firm.
I think I have mixed feelings about that question, because sometimes you really want to do the job. You feel like this is going to make your website really sing. because this is a project that is gonna make you. So you have to understand how much you feel that project or that client is gonna make you more successful in the long run. So if the question comes up, and you need to know what bottom line is, but let's say 3 of my other projects I made some money. Okay. Is this project worth enough for you to maybe not make what you thought you should make, but the value of that project is going to be in the long term better for you in the long term. So that decision is what's going to cause, at that point when someone says you want to lower your fees, you can say yes or no. At the same time, if your scope of work is really defined, then you can do what Natty said about, you know, we can take a little bit out here, but we're not going to provide you this, or whatever it is. So you have to play that game in negotiations, and that's really critical in all what we do. And every client that comes to us, we have to be really cool. We got to know when to say yes and when to say maybe and when to say no. So if you have those metrics in your mind as you're negotiating, I think you'll be fine. You'll be very successful. You'll know what to do. So you got to balance the outcome of what that project may be. So maybe you're not getting as much as you thought you should get for that project. But you've also negotiated the fact that you're not going to provide them, 3D renderings, for instance. So you kind of saying, okay, I'm charging $2,500 for a 3D rendering, but maybe you can get it for $1,000. So you can kind of, in your back of your mind, you start to balance some of those fees out that your consultants might be able to help you on, or whatever you might negotiate with them, because this project is going to be something that you really want to do.
Thank you for that. So I'll add one more to that. If that's the direction that one takes, if you're about to acknowledge that you're going to accept this for an advantageous outcome for the firm, then you could probably then ask that client, hey, let's get something in writing and I want you to follow through with this. I want my signage on the site from the moment we sign. I want all my names on all your marketing material, because we all know we get cut off. And things of that nature that we can ask for if we decide to take that direction, as opposed to just saying yes.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Thank you for that.
And for a restaurant job, for instance, you guys do
Yeah, food.
restaurants? Anybody do restaurants?
Yeah, we did.
Well, if you're not getting, let's say the job is taking longer than what it was supposed to take. Instead of 8, 10 months done, it's taking 14 months to do. So your CA fee for that is already used up, right? So you have 5 months of CA fee that he doesn't want to pay for.
We actually, just so you know, we've taken the CA fee out of the contract and it's all additional
That's
service.
another way to do it, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's smarter or rebalancing your fee structure. But what I've done, and for a steakhouse, I said, my fee, additional CA is gonna be X number of dollars, so that's worth how many steaks? Offshore.
This is being recorded.
So it's question and answer
Okay,
period.
so-
Please.
He's gonna stop.
I have a follow-up to that. Also, ask your staff, how much you think it's gonna take to do this?
Yeah.
That's better.
And when they tell you 8 hours, double it.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it in the double, you explain to them, okay, this is what happened. And next time, they'll do a little bit better for you, and it really helps everybody in the whole world. So, question?
This gentleman here.
Yeah, hi. I have a question, which is also a combination of a question and comment. We talk about the business of architecture as a title for this presentation. Isn't the reality that nowadays the business is not just architecture, but it's really AEC, the combination of architecture, engineering, and construction? It isn't just architecture anymore. You know, when I went to architectural school 40 years ago, and I went in New York, and we went through designing, and most of everything that I learned had to do with design and design development. I never learned engineering. I never learned how to value engineer a project. I never learned about construction management. So to me, it's like nowadays architecture is not really what it used to be, where the architect was really involved in all phases of the project and actually had control. I mean, there are value engineering issues that the architect knows nothing about, and the engineers know a million times much more than the architect, and it's really up to the engineer really to keep the architect informed as to what those value engineering issues are, so that he or she or they can become better designers. So I guess my question is, the future of architecture as we used to know it 40, 50 years ago, I think it's going by the wayside. Because nowadays what you have is major design-built organizations that have architects, engineers, construction managers on staff. And if you really are interested in design, you can go out and overseas and hire the most creative designer in the world. And just pay them for design. That's right. Nothing else. Because the rest of the project can be done by design-built organization. It's just a comment, and I would like to know, you guys have been in business as long as I have or longer. What do you think is going to happen in the future?
It's an indictment of our profession, sir.
That's a loaded question.
I'm asking the question.
So I have a comment on that. I think that the obviously the business has changed in the so many years that I've been in practice. I think that I disagree with you that there is only one path right now, a design-build path. That is a path, and we've taken that path with partners very successfully. We're doing it right now. But the traditional method, I do not see that it's disappeared. I don't see that it's disappeared. As a matter of fact, I think it's gotten more collaborative for the good, where CM firms are involved during the design phases, and engineers are very much involved in the early design process versus we used to just ignore them and then tell them, well, we gotta do this.
Hey, we're done. We're done now.
Just do this.
Make this work.
Okay, we gotta make this work. I think that's improved tremendously with our communication skills that are available nowadays, and with the tracking methods that are available. Are there design-build projects that are good? Yes, there's some very good design-build projects. Are there design-build projects that are terrible? I have several clients that have done design-build for quite some time, and they can't take it anymore. They don't want to do it. They feel like they have no control, and for some reason they feel like the architect has their back if they hire the architect. So that's my opinion.
I agree with Natty, and I think to some degree I disagree with where you're coming from or where you think the profession is going. I've heard about the advantages of design build for the last 30 years. And I would tell you, as a very snobby architect, that design build projects are better done for least common denominator buildings that are more related to shelter. If you want high design, you don't go to a star architectural firm and just get design and turn it over to somebody else. It doesn't turn out the same.
With you, right?
We
Some of
would
those
never.
iconic buildings in Miami have been designed by star designers who are not architects.
So
The project then becomes the architect of record who has to execute that design. It's a whole different thing, a totally different thing.
we may need to agree, hold on guys, we may need to agree to disagree. And maybe you guys can have a further conversation outside the room. So why don't we continue with Wes?
Yeah, I have a quick comment and then a question. I learned a lot tonight, so thank you to the committee for putting this on, and thank you to the panelists. I think your experience has been really valuable. there was a lot of talk about confidence, which in my young career I struggled with when I opened my firm and my practice. I've overcome it now, thankfully. But what I've learned in that short period of time is that you can't really negotiate fees and cost, but it's more about discussing value. And so, you know, when a client approaches you about your lowest cost, the response is really, well, what is our value? And how do you look at our value? You know, in CA, are you going out once a month or once a week? Those kind of things. So I think that idea of value is important. The other question though, because I think this is about the power of no, have you ever been in a position after, because I think you talked about some red flags when you first meet a client, which I've also been fortunate enough to learn as well. But after being contracted, have you been in a position where you've had to say no and get out of a contract, and can you speak to that experience?
Well, I know that Nabi, after 3 years or 4 years? 3 or 4, definitely got out of one of her contracts because she was in the red.
Yeah, for whatever reason, whether you're,
so that's
whether you're
one.
negative
That's
or
one.
it's not a good fit or whatever the case may be.
I have a couple of experiences like that, but these were residential projects, pretty well high-end custom homes, which I like to do. And okay, I think that is architect. I walked off. I terminated my contract. So you got to be able to have enough self-confidence in yourself and what you're doing, number one, and feel like this is the right move for you to make. And if that's what you feel, then do it. Because I'm so glad that I walked out. And I saw that project completed, and
It wasn't a.
Yeah, exactly. So we have time for one last
I have a
question.
question about the F word.
Okay, but, okay, I want to get to you, but I know that there was a hand here in this section.
I feel like this could be an 8-hour panel. I have so many questions, but one of the interesting things that our business has been, we've going on 5 years, I think. So in these last 2 years, like a lot of learning. I'm sure it just continues. The relationship with the client, the power of no, also the relationship with the GC and the client and the power of no. I do feel like that's a whole, like, we do a lot of restaurants, they're paying rent if it's not done in 4 months. You know, they're not, I don't want that marketing poster on that restaurant, I don't want my name on it. So like, how do you deal with the power of no, and even in relation to the GCs and the client, that kind of thing?
Can I say something?
Being a contractor.
Being a contractor.
I've been quiet. I'm like a Cuban quiet guy over here. I'm gonna answer for Angel on that. We recently did a wellness center for Miami-Dade County. It was a competitive bid. We were the low bidder. The client wanted to eliminate a lot of the scope. Local bond, pack clad, a lot of like lighting, acoustical seating. You know, like what makes you guys like wake up in the morning. You know, like what makes you want to put your sign on like on the, you know, on the fence, like something that you're really proud of. And I remember like it was yesterday, Angel like really telling him no. You know, like no, we have to do this. Like if you have to get money from another job, like we're gonna find money to get it. And we actually lowered our fee because we trusted the architect. In this case, it was Angel and his firm, because we knew that that project needed that. You know, that's not just
very rare.
You know,
in Miami.
well, that's why our model is set apart.
I didn't pay him to say this.
But I know you want to hear from them. But I do know that at least from us, we really value that. And our biggest challenge now as a company is to show the client in a meeting, obviously, that's, you know, in a formal meeting, what you guys are designing, what it's going to look like without having a 3D model, because sometimes they don't even have the money for a 3D model. So they want something beautiful, they don't have any money. So it's I just want you guys to know that you really got to push for what you want, because at the end of the day, what you want is what the client wants. And if the client can't afford or can't see what it is that you want and what we wanna build, then they're not the right client for us.
I think, just on that note, I think the client in the beginning always wants everything, right? And we do a lot of renderings and they love, at least,
Not necessarily.
but we're private sector, you're doing most.
Even in private sector.
So, but I think they get so worn out when the project is 4 months delayed, 5 months, and they just wanna move into their house or their restaurant, and they're just like, you know what, just finish it already. That baseboard detail, I don't care, you know, and it's just like, and then it just, the whole project overall gets compromised, and
One
I
of the
just.
things that you can do
Yeah.
is to try to guide contractors to your projects that you have faith and trust in.
Yep.
I can tell you that I have manipulated the situation more times than on public projects or otherwise, more times than you can count, to make sure that we, Pablo will tell you about it, that we got the folks on the job who we knew could do the job and would do it comfortably with us.
And then choose the battles that the hills that you're gonna die on. Right? Is there something you're willing to sacrifice to get something else?
So I'm gonna add, I'm gonna add,
Your contractors too.
that's a great point, thank you, Richard. I'm gonna add that it's our job as well during CA. If the client doesn't want CA, that's another red flag. And it's your job and our job to explain to them that if they don't have someone watching the project from start to finish, schedule-wise, quality control-wise,
Good luck.
they're going to then
Come back at you.
have a problem down the road at the end. So, having said that, we got about 3 more hands, and I gotta ask Colleen, are you gonna throw me out the window, or can I take this call?
Almost.
Mine is short.
No, but you're the most dangerous one. You said
No, no,
fees,
no.
you got a question about fees, so I'm asking,
No,
before we
it's
go
not
in there,
fees,
Colleen,
it's not
do we have
fees.
time for 3 more questions?
You're in charge.
I have a quick comment. Okay, so we've all been sued, right?
No.
Right? So the question is, has any of you sued? Is any downside to suing a client? Or have you ever sued a client?
We use collection agencies when we haven't gotten paid. There's one client that I can think of that falls into that category. Somebody who's pretty well known, right?
Or in the case of a private, have you placed a lien on somebody's property?
Yes.
No, but that's a really good, I had a really good friend that used to do that religiously at the end of it. And he would give them like 3-4 months after not getting paid and continuously asking for the money, he would file a lien. And eventually he would just get a check in the mail like.
Yeah, whenever the property's sold.
I would tell you that suing would probably be your last resort.
It sucks.
No, of course, right? But aside, you're burning some bridges. Is there an upside to this, or always a downside?
And I would just say, and I'm speaking for everyone here, is that, again, it's up to you to make sure that your billings are up to date and adequate with your phasing of design and construction and CA. If you're falling behind, you don't wanna do that, because then you don't wanna leave those last few payments when they don't need you anymore. Punch list, you wanna kinda make sure, listen, by the way, even before you go out, you wanna say, listen, have you been able to take care of this for me? Because I've got the punch list scheduled. You're just softening it up a little bit. But my accounting department, you're one person, my accounting department, okay, is hounding me daily, and you're by yourself.
Doesn't matter.
I have been known to not release drawings.
Yeah.
Oh, Lourdes, you're not being a team player. I said, you send me money. They're mine until you pay me.
So that's another option. Obviously, you can sever your ties with that client at that point.
Right, no, of course, right, that's
So
easy.
staying on track of things, I think, is a better option. So I know there were 2 more hands. I know Professor had
A quick comment. It's a lot easier to say no when you are financially secure and you do not have a big overhead. Simple.
Yes, true statement.
So is there advice for the younger people in the room who may be tempted to say yes to something that they know they will lose money for because they need to pay the bills? You see what I'm saying? Which is following up on his statement. It's easier to say no when you have money in the bank, but if you don't have money in the bank, how do you say no? Is there any advice?
I'm gonna give some advice because everybody thinks that you always have money. But when I took over my firm, things were not very good in the market. They were terrible. As a matter of fact, the economy was horrible. I had to put money to pay out of my pocket to pay our employees, all right? So you can't assume somebody's always flush with money. But the most important thing, I hate to say it, about saying no, is that if you are driving yourself bare, that you can't even sleep because you're working 80 hours a week, because somebody's not paying you what you need to pay your overhead and basically your basic costs, you know, and your employees, please don't ever not pay your employees, period, okay? So it is preferable for you not to have employees. It is preferable for you to work on clients' projects that are paying your bills and that you have adequately said yes to. If it is preferable than running yourself ragged, because at some point you're gonna get in trouble, because you're not gonna be able to perform. Because the good paying client is gonna be suffering the same as the one that's not. So please don't do that. I know it's really, really hard to say that, and have faith that in yourself and your abilities and what you can do, and go out and shake the bushes and get a different client, and you will be
By the
able to do
way,
that.
financially secure doesn't mean having money, it's not having debt.
Yeah. And
There is a difference.
yeah, I think that you make, like Nadi says, you make sure your staff is paid. Even though you are suffering, make sure your staff is paid always, on time, or else you have to let them go because you can't pay them. And so make sure you pay your staff. And the other thing is, my business plan is always trying to get projects and clients that are quick turnaround clients, like tenant improvement projects and stuff like that, who pay quickly. The projects are small, they're not worthy of awards, some of them are, but not really. But what it is they pay quickly. And so when you have a larger project that takes a longer time to get your payment, this is covering the staff salaries while you're waiting for the big checks to come in. Yeah. So make sure when you do diversify your practice enough so that you can balance that kind of thing. So don't just say, I'm gonna just do custom homes and that's it, and live on that. Try to make a balanced practice. A TI work to me is slam dunk. I mean, it's quick, you get it in and out, get it done, and you get paid immediately. So I always suggest that.
Excellent point, excellent point. Did you want to say one last thing?
Again, I would reiterate that you act like a big firm, charge fees like a big firm. The minute I left Spillis Candela, you think my hourly rate went down? No. My hourly rate was gonna be the same. And that's, and I have kept the drawings under the desk for a certain very tall building downtown. I mean,
Which will be a thing.
Which you can get. So, because somebody owed us $500,000
Only.
Yeah, and it's don't hesitate to hold back under that circumstance.
Yeah.
But that has occurred, not so much with me, but I can tell you, back again to use Spillis Candela as an example from a major developer in town that everybody here respects, didn't pay his bill because he didn't have it, because you're the architect and you're at the beginning of the project, and my construction financing hasn't come through yet. So today I don't have, it's all coming out of my pocket. When it's done, when the pocket's empty, it's empty.
Were you the investor? Are you the investor, or you're gonna get the,
can't
if you
invest.
are not the investor, you're not gonna get the profit, that developer, that restaurant, whatever, it's their investment. And keep that in your head, is like,
think
very
that's a whole
nice.
new topic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a whole
Ignore the team
That's for
player.
another seminar, so I'd like to thank everybody.
Yeah.